Good evening. This is the Elliott wave update for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. An interesting day. I am going to start there because it actually was. We saw a lot of jockeying for position, and all in advance of the slew of earnings reports that were going to be coming out after the market. And some not so bad, some chiming in saying, hey, we did okay, we're looking to do better, etc. And stocks taking strong hits. Now, stocks that are potentially stronger here in the S&P 500 would be IBM, which the earnings were not well received. Stock last time I just looked, and I'll just take a look again. The stock was trading at 171, bid at 172, closing at 184. So basically down $12 there. Metaverse closing at 493.50, currently 437.50, bid at 438. So that has been as low as I can tell you right now. It's been as low as 426, 426.50, we'll call it. So it's up about $10 off of that, as the futures market is now closed and will reopen in about an hour, 55 minutes. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the world wants to deal with these earnings reports. And so let's kind of jump in and just take a technical view, now that we kind of gathered the fundamental or the reasons the market tend to move. Now, here in the S&P, yesterday I had presented the possibility of the count being that this was minor wave 4, and then this was 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and then coming off in a 4, and then maybe going back up, putting in minute wave 1 of minor wave 5. Today, I'm back to the other, because remember, as I've been saying all along, that I'm running the two, and I'm calling them both my preferred counts because both continue to carry equal weight on a probability scale of being the actual one that's in force. Now, as we sit in basically still, the first week of earnings, and then we started last week, the end of the week. Now this is the first full week, and we still have a lot to go. And so I'm still showing both. So today I'm back to where, yep, we saw the high, the primary wave B, up there at the 53.33 high. And that what we've done so far is minute wave 1, minute 2, minute 3, and I'm sticking a minute wave 4 at today's high at 51.2875. Now, interestingly enough, 5100 or 51, I think 20 or 30, was a trigger, a volatility trigger. We went up, we tried to tick it off, and it didn't basically work because the market turned around and sold. So it's interesting on the reactions that the market is kind of giving to this week. So we came in on a more positive note because of Tesla's more positive response to their earnings, and basically traded higher for most of the day, and then really started to get hit late, even though on my 4-hour chart here in the S&P, it never was green. It just reached its high overnight and just worked its way lower all day. So here we are. So I'm going to stick that 4 there now. And the main reason is because it overlapped what I would consider wave 1, right? So in other words, if this was a 4, it would be a 4 of, if this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and this should be a 4 of the third. It's like a little bit difficult, because if this is 1, it's overlapping. Not by a lot, but it's overlapping. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go with the fact that it's A, B, and it was a 1, 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 5, and this is a C wave. And it's 4 coming back down now to put in the fifth wave, to put in minor wave 1 on the count that we're at the beginning stages of that primary C wave. Now, outside of that, just to carry it forward, the more bullish, obviously, would be the minor wave 4 completing here, and that we're in 1, 2, and then we get a 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to allow it because we might be able to consider that or that. And so the little bit that is overlapping, here's what would have to happen though, folks. Here's what would have to happen on that. It can't go down anymore. It has to go from here and go up. Now that would keep the minor wave 4 engaged. Otherwise, we're going to swing, we're going to come down. If we break that level, it's done because it can't, right? Then it's overlapping, it definitively is overlapping wave 1. So it can't. And that one sits at 5,055, 5,058 actually. So we have our markers that will kind of kick this off to the next downside. And we'll just kind of go from there and see which one comes through. Now, I'm leaving it here. And so what we've now got engaged here is I've put 1 to 4 so I can get my estimates for minute wave 5. Now 100%, which is the most common, comes in at 49.86. I've got the current low, although it was a spike low, but still the current low at 49.63, which suggests that if it came down here and finished it here, it would be a failure, and it would be an odd failure because we're really looking for the downside to continue. So I'm not looking at that to be the case. I'm looking for it to come on through and probably reach 4,900 at least, with that 1.618 coming in at 48.99. Excuse me. So, and then I put the minor. Now it could just continue. Now, right below all of that, I have on, if I go out and just go to my daily chart, excuse me 1 second. Boy, a lot of pollen in the air, and it just makes me cough, and I don't feel like doing it live. Okay, so back out to what that red line is. It is the high of minor wave 1. So if we were still going to be hanging on to this as a minor 4, so in case that wasn't the bottom of it, and it's still going to swing down, it cannot break 48.94. That definitively cuts that right out. So that could happen, you know, pretty quick if it really wanted to. We shall see. I'm bringing it back down to the 4-hour and bring it over here because on the daily it doesn't look all that bad. In fact, even on the 4-hour, it doesn't look all that bad. But this thing could pick up speed and just start to go. And I think it could do it real quick. You know, considering that Meta's now dropped to 408. So this is not going to bode well, because Meta is in the S&P and Meta, of course, is in the NASDAQ. So not going to be a pretty picture come tomorrow. We're watching this thing just kind of drop quickly while the futures markets are closed, ready to open in 45 minutes. So I'm going to be looking for this to come back down along with it. In fact, we might gap a little bit. Because with that, as yesterday we saw that with the decent earnings or the acceptance of the earnings from Tesla, that it pulled a lot of the other stocks up with it. This in turn is beginning to pull a lot of the stocks down with it. Now, these stocks will trade for several more hours. So already what we're seeing is Google being marked down 6, and actually about 5.5 from the close. We're seeing AMD be marked down, Amazon being marked down. Excuse me, man, I'm sorry about that. Apple, no. Apple is sitting higher. They're not going to let that one go. That's fine. AMAT being marked down, AMD being marked down, everybody. Basically, all the rest of the stocks being marked down. Netflix continuing to slide. So I'm going to leave this as the 4. Here we are coming off, and we see that break. So this is just the beginning, right? We're looking for a minute 5th wave down. And so it's going to come off in its own 5 waves. This was 5 waves to fulfill minute wave 3. We're looking for it to likely get itself down below 5,000, down below 4,900, just barely. And so we could get that pretty quickly tomorrow, to be honest with you. So, and in fact, tomorrow we have, nope, I know we got somebody coming in tomorrow. Nope. Nope. Well, let me come back down here. I know Microsoft is 1. Microsoft is tomorrow, and I knew there was somebody else, and now I can't find out who it is. There is another larger player that's coming out tomorrow as well. And so, but we'll see. I'll check on that in a little bit. Now, moving average wise, today didn't do much damage to anything, even though it kind of made them go flat and curve a little bit to the downside. So that all remains in place, but I think it'll catch up tomorrow. Bringing it down, let's take a look on the hourly chart, see what we got going on. You can see we got a 1, 2, 3, what's that? You know, all these quick rushes back up and then quick drops back down are compelling, just in a very kind of confused market and just kind of driving itself crazy. So I think we might have some stronger downside tomorrow, but hey, we still got a lot to get through. And they turn around, they buy. Now we can see Meta. I was just saying it was trading at 402. It's now trading back at 417. It's a $15 gain in the 3 minutes it took me to tell you what I just told you. All right. So if this is going to remain minor 4, I'm going to return to this as a more bullish count. It would have to be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 3, 4, overlap, barely, we let it, but it can't go down anymore. Has to turn and go up. So that's kind of the part that might be a little bit sticky. And that would not favor a minor 4. If we continue to come down and start breaking this, then it's done. All right, over in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was pretty fun to watch, and when it came out of all of this, we go to the 4-hour chart, and we're just kind of open it up from here so we can see. Now here's, well, yesterday I presented the chart where this was A, B, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this was C, and that was minor 4, and we had 1, 2, 1, 2, and then a 3, 4, 5, and I had marked it. Wow, okay. So we had possibly just going to need a little bit of a correction, right? So if it was 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, it was a 4, and it just kind of like tossed that one up with the whatever. And now with the market continuing, so the low thus far is 481, 17,481 on 482 basically. And I would look for it to continue to drop as these stocks continue to retreat from their gains today. Now, what does this begin to look like? Let's first of all put in this over to here. And then we have the same deal. What are we looking at is the fact that wave 1, as we look at wave 5, we get the connection. Wave 5 is related to wave 1, so we connect on a fib basis, those two, to see where this projects out. Well, 100%, which is the most common, is 17,141, but we already know that the low is 17,113. We're expecting that low to be broken, so that again, like in the S&P, brings about the situation that we'd be looking for it to come down to 1.618, which accordingly is 16,738, I'll call it. So that from where we are is quite a steep drop, and I'm not so sure it's going to drop 800 bucks tomorrow. Now, in essence, we also have tomorrow, in terms of economic data, we have the GDP, initial jobless claims, advanced U.S. trade balance, retail inventories, advanced retail inventories, advanced wholesale inventories, and pending home sales. Those are all tomorrow. Back that up with Friday morning, so after tomorrow's earnings, if they don't come out well, we got another little punch in the face on Friday, possibly from PCE. So that's the big one that comes out Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, GDP, initial jobless claims, and advanced trade balance in retail inventories and wholesale inventories. 10 a.m. pending home sales. So we do have some data coming out tomorrow. Earnings, as far as I know right now, as I said, Microsoft, and I know there are others, but now I cannot find them. So it'll be interesting. Nope. And NVIDIA, I know, is May the 22nd, I believe. So Intel, I think, is, yes, Intel's tomorrow and Microsoft is tomorrow. Those are out of the biggies. And Intel actually, closing up a little bit, even in the after hour, closing up a little bit. So we shall see what all of this is going to do here. And again, just looking at that metaverse, see, they came all the way down. In fact, they broke 400 just 10 minutes ago, and now they're back up at 419, going to press on 420. It just, it amazes me. Somebody needed to get out and somebody got out, and then they just buy it back up. So the volatility is going to get pumped up a little bit here. We're going to see how the market wants to react to all of this. Fifth wave coming down is going to come down in 5 waves of its own. This was the third, usually is the longest and the strongest, and it did include an extended 3 of 3. So I would look for this one to be a little bit more, just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting itself down here, maybe even lower. Now, the speed is what's going to be interesting, because if they really turn sour again on this market, we may start to see the activity like we did here and here, where they just come in and they hit it. Now, don't forget that yesterday, what we saw is this gigantic whoosh back up where risk off. In other words, they were selling the VIX. In fact, they were doing it most of today as well, selling the VIX and buying the component volatility. Now, they could throw a bunch of stuff into disarray here. First of all, Meta could do it on its own just because of the gap that it's created from the close to the expectation. Now, I'm just going to toss a couple of things out there. What I find very interesting is, when you're trying to position yourself and you want to have an earnings play, depending on your account size, there are a lot of things you could do. One thing that I have found, and so far I kind of like the looks of it, and that is just taking a look at the money straddle. So this would have been yesterday when I did this, and the at the money straddle in Meta was the 495. That was the strike, 495. And so what I ended up doing is then going and saying, well, I don't really want to just be long or short a straddle. So I start to look as like, well, what do I really want to do? I want to be long on one side, short on the other. So I want to be long a call and long a put. And when I looked at the strangle, because that's really kind of what it is, I don't want to do it in a straddle, but I'd rather do it in a strangle. and then I have different ones. Then I went and I looked at 25 delta strangles. So in other words, you're doing a combination of these call and put and the delta, and I looked at 25 delta strangles. And for Meta, it was the 495 call, which happened to be the one at the money, and it was the 492.5 put. Now the price yesterday was 40.75. The price going right up to when earnings were just about ready to come out was 43. So by our close today, options closed at 4 o'clock. So at that close, it was priced at 43. The stock moved way more than $43. So that trade in the strangle, which I don't normally like a strangle, because what you're really looking for, that kind of thing with that high of a premium, the stock has got to move. But that's really what traders were actually already telling us with these prices being where they were. They were anticipating a big move. So as soon as that thing hit the tape, it wasn't really bad. They actually beat the street, but something didn't jive with what they were looking for, and they just immediately sold it. And they didn't just sell it, they sold it hard. And next thing you knew, it was down 50. Then it was down a little bit more. Then it was down a little bit more. So in essence, off the low that we got this afternoon, the stock was down $90, which had been twice the price of that strangle. Now, here's the catch. The options don't start trading until tomorrow morning. So you're going to be hanging out there, having to deal with all of overnight what happens in the stock. And that could be unnerving. So far, good trade. But, you still have both sides. If they decide to run this thing and go all the way back and take it right back to 500 for whatever reason they have, you still have the call. So again, the strangle, you're okay overnight. And these actually, I also must tell you, these were the options that expire on Friday. So not like it's a long term and you've got a while to let this all play out. These are very short dated options. Now, back to the NASDAQ. So let's look to see what we can come up with tomorrow. I think we have enough overlap where I'm back to that what we finished today was a minute wave 4 as a part of the first 5 waves down to form minor wave 1. And that was also realizing that high at 18,709 was the completion point for the intermediate wave C and the primary B wave. So that's the count. Outside of that, I'm going to have a really tough time. But again, what the market would need to do from here, absolutely no more downside. It has to start from Globex, turn and go up. And it needs to get itself back above 17,795. In fact, it needs to break 17,800. It needs to do it damn quick. Now, what would that then suggest? Well, for one thing, it's going to suggest that NVIDIA opens and just, by 8 o'clock Eastern, stocks stop trading. Right now, NVIDIA is down 12 to $13. We have Meta. Meta's down over $70 from where it closed. And I could go on. We just have a lot of stocks that are down. They can't go down anymore. They have to stop, go up, and not only that, but they got to rally all the way back as well. Now, if you see that, well, then you might just get your move. Otherwise, I would expect that we're going to continue. I've got an RSI that's kind of go toppling over and still in the extreme level. And so maybe we're just going to come down to finish, get that out. Moving averages basically just starting to turn. So they got caught in the turn. We go back out to the daily and I open that one up. Yeah. We can see where they are kind of turning. But the 200 is the granddaddy out here, and it's still sitting right at 16,867. So if we were to come down in a 5 and it gets to this level, it was going to break that. That could be dramatic. That could be very dramatic because that's kind of the missing piece. Because as long as this sits all above this daily 200, it continues to hold out a little bit of hope. that this is the minor 3. And we're going to go up versus down. If it comes down and takes it out, even gives it a test or breaks it, could turn the tide and put the cement in place to hold up this high right where it is. All right. Again, we have a few numbers tomorrow morning, starting at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We have earnings reports again coming out tomorrow. And again, there will be a slew, I guess, of stocks that you trade or whatever you're trading. You can go look at them up and you will be able to find which ones are also coming out besides Microsoft and Intel. Intel, I think, might be well received. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, because a lot of what we saw in Microsoft at Intel today could have been because of NVIDIA continuing to gain and then sliding off at the end of the day or at the second half of the session. So we'll see. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, but at least it's going to provide some decent trading. And that's what I find is to be most important. So whether you're a swing trader or whether you're a day trader, even if you're a position trader, hopefully you're going to position to the correct, for what you feel is the correct position. And that otherwise, swing traders and day traders, we should have some great trades tomorrow as the market continues to uptick in volatility. And we start to see that risk off trade get reversed and they start putting risk back on. All right. Next update will be on Thursday, April the 25th.